Hey friends, Rob here. I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about video for your wedding, specific to live streaming, cinematography. Is there a difference between the two? Videography, what does that even mean? The gear that's used, what price should you pay? All of those things. I'd like to let you know up front that if you have any questions that aren't answered by this video and you leave them down below, I'll get back to you. Also, if you're abroad and you're interested in a little bit more one-on-one consultation, give me a telephone call. It's absolutely free. Send me an email. We will set that up. Robert Hand Photography and our wedding production business to travel across the country. So come check us out and we'll get you squared away. Final thing before we jump into this, if you see any gear that you end up picking up, the links below are affiliate links. So if you do purchase through them, I will receive a little kickback. You'll be showing your support for the channel and I thank you very much. Let's jump into it. I hesitate to call this a 5 things you need to know, but let's just call it a basis for what is the price that you're paying for when it comes to photography, videography, specific to live streaming and cinematography and whatever that means to you. Let's actually separate this down to a couple of different ways. The first thing is cinematography versus videography generally involves a coordinator, a choreographer, or a director, like a director of photography. A gentleman that might be, or a lady that might be out there photographing your wedding could definitely call themselves a cinematographer, especially if that's something that they specialize in, have a body of work. Generally speaking, a cameraman or a camerawoman that's just operating one camera, or maybe even operating a group of cameras through additional people or static cameras, will be providing videography as opposed to cinematography, specific to it being produced more spur-of-the-moment, run-and-gun kind of stuff. So when you hear those terms, they are used kind of interchangeably, but they actually mean several different things. I consider myself a videographer, although when I do have paid clients that want a more produced type of look, we sit down, we storyboard, we block things out, that has more of a cinematographic kind of feel to it. But the reality is the type of work that I do really falls in the category of videography. Think of a production company for a theater or a production company for a small label. Then those guys are producing theatrical pieces that might be used on TV and media and things like that. There's a lot more production to it. So the difference between the two is simply that, and the lines are kind of blurred. So should you pay more for a cinematographer or a videographer? No, you should pay more for better work. We're going to talk about what that looks like here in a minute. That's coming up soon. Before we move on to that, a real big consideration is a live stream versus videography. And you might ask yourself, well, aren't those two very different? And they are and they aren't at the same time. Let me give you a little example. A live stream is a produced piece of content that happens in real time, for which the actual deliverable item is the live stream itself. And generally, the media created from that is saved to a device or saved to the streaming location. That could also be the physical deliverable in a SD card download. So it's got two different delivery locations, online, immediate as it happens, which is no edit, and then a hard copy of the edit that took place at the time, not a post-production workflow. Which means that if you had several cameras and a crew that was going on, you could have something that looked very produced for a deliverable from a live stream that could work as a wedding live stream, could also work as a wedding video, rather than having someone do those two tasks separately. But those two things and that consideration is something you really need to think about, because there are quality differences, and we'll get about that in just a minute. Since all of these things kind of deal with ethereals right now, you may not be familiar with some of the gear. Let's actually talk about pricing. A videographer, cinematographer, or someone that's providing a good professional live stream knows their worth. They know their worth because they've done it. Everything from capturing video and recording an acoustic instrument, to having additional microphones, to having aerial photography, gimbals that could work around and carry around, cameras that can zoom real far, and a production and director's monitor set up with the appropriate kind of multi-device audio input is going to be everything that's in your signal chain. And we'll talk about these in a little bit more detail in just a moment. But this job requires quite a bit of knowledge and generally a team. When you have a one-man band that's trying to produce it all, which is totally fine, I do that from time to time, the reality is that saving the money to have one person provide all of that service in this entire genre means that there's a lot to go on. When it comes to a wedding, you've got too many working pieces, things that are moving to worry about just one particular person as part of your team when it comes to this. The reality is you're going to want multiple people when possible. When that happens, you're going to increase the knowledge requirement that those people have, the skill level. You'll also increase the gear requirement that they have, no matter what the production time would be. Whether it's a live stream produced on location, the deliverable is completed by the end of the shoot because the deliverable is the live stream, or if it's post-production, you may have some additional editing prospects and things that go on there in post-production. And we'll talk about that more in just a minute as well. But between the two, when it comes down to your live stream, your video, your cinematography, whatever it is, the number one thing that you're paying for is knowledge and the ability for the person to provide the proper equipment to make your dream come true. Let's actually move from the equipment now to the licensing part. If you're going to be flying a drone, you're definitely going to need a license to be able to have that footage in most areas, especially with the drone rules that are now, unless you're getting married in a place that is already drone friendly, that is a certified drone use area, your cinematographer or videographer will have to have the drone license. That SUAS license may also require a certificate of authorization. For example, here in Virginia Beach, I have certificates of authorization for NAS Oceana Naval Air Station Oceana Airspace, which means I'm one of the very few photographers in Virginia Beach that can legally fly down in the ocean front, which is why you don't see many videographers flying drones down to the ocean front. I can. I do it for all my weddings when they hire that kind of a service, and even for my photography because I like it and I can do it. I can also fly in Norfolk International Airspace. I've got a COA for that, and I've got a COA for Langley Airspace, which means I can fly over at Hampton University. These three things allow me to fly in many of the different places. The certificate of authorization allows me to have approval, which is already cleared by the FAA, but still has to be cleared by the tower controlling the airspace that I'm operating in, which means that in Virginia Beach or Hampton University or over at NSU, I may not be able to fly in that airspace even with a COA if there's a lot of air traffic coming in and the controller tells me no. These are things that are all important to know, and that by operating appropriately with the new drone reporting laws and everything that takes place, your drones are communicating with the different towers through the ADS-B and drone identification and remote ID software. You won't have any cops showing up to shut you down. Fly licensed, it's that simple. The next thing that we're going to talk about is when we're using our drones or we're using our equipment, we actually need to make sure that that production takes place somehow. And we're going to talk about that production in the form of on-location production from a live stream as compared to something that's done post-production. And here's what that means. I have a process with all of my cameras called ABR. All of my contractors and all of my people that I work with follow the rule of ABR. If the camera can be on and recording, push the button. The camera should always be recording. This is important. When the camera records internally to its own SD card through its own processes, it captures a much higher quality image than what most people will be able to live stream out. For example, when I live stream mobile, I use a command deck like this, and that allows me to bring in all of my video interfaces, usually with wireless transmitters, and all of my audio interfaces, usually with also wireless transmitters, into one box that I can then set up scenes and stream with directly to Facebook or YouTube or somewhere else. This is important because I want to be able to get what you're doing live out to the people that want to view it. Generally, I put it on my website in a gallery that's privacy protected for you, and also make that link available through YouTube so that you can easily share under a private link as well. This box is a lot smaller than what you might consider a computer. Prior to devices similar to this box, you had to have a mobile studio that consisted of your computer, your power supply, your monitor for it. It was a huge thing. And obviously, you can't sit a computer, I can't put a laptop on top of those cameras. I definitely can't put it on 3. So being able to be mobile with a device like this allows me to stream in more locations because it's an easier workflow for me, and it all takes place right here. I command the entire show. Generally, when we're operating under videography or live stream, I have 3 camera operators. One is myself, and then I have one on another camera, and I have one on a static camera, and I'll have a production assistant that's working around to help me. I've got a static camera catching a wide angle with the wireless video coming in. I've got a movable angle, that might be this gimbal right here with my other operators going, we're wearing headsets. I've got my production assistant with the shot list that we're gonna do while we're creating the live stream, and then I've got myself on the director's monitor. From here, I'll be telling my production assistant what I need her to get my camera operators to do, and they'll go and do it. We also have titles and things that are generated so that when a particular wedding or something comes about, we're actually producing that live on stream and queuing up the microphones through our audio interface that you see right here. And all of those things are set up ahead of time prior to the wedding once the musician or the speakers arrive. This type of a product is very well suited for delivery as a final edit as well, because this type of a production follows more of a videographer's workflow. And since we're doing it all in camera and while we're live streaming, if it's good enough for your live stream, the likelihood is it's probably good enough for your deliverable piece as well. What we're cutting out in this part is actually a lot of post-production. And we'll talk about why that's important a little bit more in the detail part of post-production, but what it does right now is save you money. When you spend less money on working for 2 months on a video and color correcting and everything else, then you can deliver sooner, keeps the cost down, and it's a nice product. What's the difference between the two? Well, when we photograph and make our recordings and produce our live stream service, we're actually doing that with what's called an in-camera edit. We're setting up our cameras to be appropriate for the scene and the lighting situation, and we're not going to do any post-production edits for you. I do have a policy, like we talked about, always be recording. So if I wanted to, I could create a 4K edit for you out of this stuff, which is possible. But generally speaking, without an upgrade, if you don't purchase that, I'll provide you the 1080p update from this, just like you saw when it was streaming. For a couple $100 more, you can have a 4K deliverable item as this. And then if you want the full post-production workflow, you can have something that we would do a little bit after the fact. That post-production workflow is going to be much higher. Generally speaking, a 1080p stream compared to my Apple ProRes internal recordings of the cameras that I usually use in my external recorders and things like that, is literally 150, 200 times better. I'm recording more data. I've got more stuff to work with. What that means is that my pixels and my image and my quality can look better in the end, but I have to shoot in a flatter profile. It's a lot more difficult to work with, takes up more hard drive space. I've got a 512 gigabyte hard drive that fills up in a little bit of 28 minutes at Apple ProRes RAW. It's just ridiculous how quickly it speeds up. Consider that when I go to your wedding, I'm probably going to have 8 hours of video between 4 cameras that we might be using, and now you've got a whole lot of space. I'm using terabytes and terabytes of information compared to what an internal recording on just a standard camera or even a cinema camera might do. Well, that has to do with recording formats, and that's a different video. But my point is, as compared to the live stream, there's more data to work with, which means a post-production workflow that we have to edit, which means we have more time in post-production to get these things together and create the most perfect edit. That also means that if there was anything embarrassing that happened during the live stream that we would not want to show, like if Uncle Bob was picking his nose, but it was captured on the live stream, everybody gets to see it. In a post-production edit, we can completely edit that out using our multiple cameras and switch over different angles. Also, we have another thing we can do. With our audio workflow in post-production, we have more opportunity to fix clipped or broken audio, which could happen depending on what's going on. A jet could come over, an aircraft if you live by an airport, someone on the beach if you were getting married at the beach in a small ceremony could say some kind of expletive or something like that. Who knows? It's a live event. But with post-production, we can really work with those much better. Also, although we record all of our audio in 32-bit float point audio right now, for a live stream, we have to already set our levels so that it's appropriate to the live stream so that your audience listening live gets their best opportunity to hear what you're saying. However, because we're recording in 32-bit float at 192 kilohertz sample rate, we're able to actually go in and adjust the sound quite a bit more. It's pretty remarkable what we can do in a post-production workflow. Basically, with post-production, the plan of what happens takes more detail. It's a little bit longer. We have a more polished final device that we provide to you, which also has a higher quality rate, much higher image quality, higher bit rate. Generally, the finished product is on the order of 10 to 15 times easily better than what a 1080p will be. Often, if we're doing Apple ProRes RAW recording, will be 30 to 40 times better in 4K with quality than what you might see from a 1080p stream. Does that matter to you? Some people it does, some people it doesn't. The difference is quite a bit in cost and immediacy, because there won't be any live stream if we're just doing a post-production video. Okay, now that we've talked about all of that, let's talk about the final thing, pricing and where these things sit and the type of person that maybe you're interviewing or you may consider hiring. We understand that there's a lot going on here, but the reality is if you hire a video producer or someone to create this live stream or for someone to create your wedding video, they're going to need a certain level of gear as well as a certain level of acumen and produced work. No matter what it looks like, you should see a progression level that gets better and better. This means that if your person that you're talking to doesn't have experience with all of this type of gear, they may not be the right person for you. And the reason is quite simple, is that you are a bride. You are going to ask us for something at the last moment. You will do it, I promise. I've done it. I've photographed over 500 weddings going back to 2012, and done over 150 live streams just through 2020 alone. You're going to ask for something, whether it be, oh, we forgot to tell you, we had an instrumentalist at the last minute, can you mic them? Well, that's a plan change, right? That's a huge thing. Oh, we're going to have another speaker. Oh, you know what? We decided we would like aerial footage after all. Even though you may have only talked to your wedding videographer about aerial footage when you first met. But generally speaking, you as a bride are going to have some kind of last minute thing. Now, let me ask you another question. What would you like for your service provider to say? Yes or no? Yeah, we can do that. I'm sorry, I don't have that capability. It's too last minute. No one likes no. No, we don't like that at all. I don't like to tell my brides no. I know you're going to ask for those things, so I plan for that in my shot list and our preparation. But in the event that you ask for something at the last minute, I've got boxes of wireless transmitters. I've got additional drones. I've got, how many handheld mics would you like? You want one for each of your bridesmaids? I've got 10. I can bring 10 additional handheld mics and wireless transmitters for me to give to you to use with your bridesmaids. Oh, you don't want that? You want it to be lapel? No problem. I've got 8 additional ones right here. Oh, we need a soundboard to cover that. No problem. I've got 8 inputs right here, 6 that can be interchangeable. I can also bring my additional soundboards that are mobile that it can allow me to record all of those tracks with the 32-bit float. I can network these together. I can do a lot of stuff, which means people that have the experience and the gear will be able to say yes to you more often. And we weren't even talking about additional cameras. You always need more cameras, and you always need extra reach, and you always need extra lenses, which is one of the reasons that I use camcorders so much for my wedding videos. Generally, when we're outdoors and I specialize in on-the-beach wedding, camcorders do a great job of giving me an extremely long reach and a relatively small package. This one right here, I can put up and get a 20 times zoom, 24 times zoom right here. That's equivalent to 600 millimeters on a full-frame camera, which means I can set this up in the back. That one up in the back, I can set this down. I can walk around with this. It's on a gimbal. It's going to be nice and smooth. I can do the same with both of them. I can interstitch that footage with any of the additional footage through cameras that we're using for that purpose. They work well together. So, yes, gear matters, and yes, experience matters. That's what you're paying for more than anything else. Guys, I hope that you found this video helpful. Brides, if you have any additional questions, don't forget to contact me. Send me an email to my website or leave a comment down below. Either way, if you need more than I can do through text or email, then I'll be happy to set up a telephone call with you. Don't forget that if you would like to hire Robert Hand Photography or a wedding production company to come and help you with your wedding in your neck of the woods, we do travel. It's not as expensive as you might think with easy payment plans and such like that. Happy to help you about that. Guys, I would like to thank you so much for watching. Congratulations on getting married if that's for you, and I hope to chit-chat with you on the flip side. Bye for now.